Welcome, everyone, to the First Name Basis podcast. I'm your host, Sheetal Jaitly. This is where we chat with industry leaders and innovators and make things really real and authentic. With me today, I got Nihal Mehta, who is a good friend of mine, an investor in TribalScale, an investor in many things, and we're going to get into that. But Nihal, welcome to the podcast.
Great to be here, Sheetal. You mentioned industry leaders, so I'm definitely in the wrong podcast. But thanks for having me as a filler. I appreciate that.
Dude, what does your company call you? I just got an email or a message the other day. They call you the human Rolodex?
Yeah, most people are like, what is a Rolodex? What is it? People don't know. Millennials don't know what Rolodex is.
Yeah. They don't know. So look, I put an inspirational background on for you, man. I got Marquee, I think it's Las Vegas, happening behind me. In better times, we'll head back there.
Yeah. It's open, apparently.
I'm sure. It's just raging.
I think Dennis Rodman might be there.
Is that Purell that's squirting out of the top? It's the Purell confetti. Dude, welcome. I wanted to kick it off and talk a little bit about your journey. I'm fortunate enough to know a lot of the people who come on this podcast, but everybody's got a pretty cool story, a tough story that they've gone through, and I'd love to hear yours is really cool, funny along the way as well, but a lot of hard work and dedication took to get you where you're at right now. So give us a little bit of background about yourself.
Yeah, I by the way, my beard is not usually this long, so this is the quarantine.
Me too.
This is probably the height of the beard girth.
I got my mullet happening too.
Oh yeah, I've got that too. Which is actually it's reassuring as an old man to like actually be growing hair back there, which is nice. And then also I was surprised that the beard wasn't as gray as I anticipated. But anyway, this is probably max girth. Girth's a good Scrabble word, by the way, for those of you that play Scrabble. GIRTH. I don't know how many points it is, but it's a good word. I started my career as a DJ and promoter. What they say, once a promoter, always a promoter, probably. In college and even after, you would find me on street corners, kind of handing out flyers, to the next big party. And in college, my roommate and I were DJs, and we decided, instead of kind of telling folks where we were playing and what was going on, that we just build a website. The year was 1999, and you scribble.com on a napkin, and you were famous.
Yeah.
And so we came close to going public, not really, but we ended up cobbling together, $1 million from aunties and uncles, all over the world. We had billboards on 95 and commercials on MTV, produced by The Roots, by the way.
Awesome.
Actually, we had scratched doing a beatbox for PhillyTonight.com. I still have the audio. It's pretty epic. But we spent that $1 million pretty quick. We were 21, 22 years old.
Sure.
And that was kind of our first stint at running a startup. And sure enough, 2001 hit hard. 9/11 hit hard as well, and the economy was faltering, especially the internet economy that really didn't exist. I mean, this is pre-Google, so an ad-based economy without a real scalable ad-based platform.
Yeah.
And so actually, one of my hardest lessons was my first lesson. I'm very fortunate to have experienced this now, 18 years ago. We had to file that company, PhillyTonight.com. We had to file Chapter 7 bankruptcy. We had a ton of debt on our balance sheet. We had no way to pay it back. Nobody was investing in the market. In the general.com market, I think we were one of, probably thousands of startups that went belly up at that time. But growing the company from, the two of us to 45 back to 2, we were riding high with these commercials and billboards and, building a real service and presence, not only in Philadelphia, but around the globe. And, we had to take it all the way down. So that was a humbling experience. Those aunties and uncles, I always say.
You must have learned so much more on the way down than the way up, right? Like we
for
all,
sure.
like on the way up, it hides you. You don't even realize where you're effing up,
For sure. Yeah. You only learn.
Hide all imperfections, right?
That's right. You only learn from your failures. You learn the most and the more spectacular your failures are, the more you learn, consciously or unconsciously, right? Because, we see it now in other entrepreneurs, obviously on the other side of the table, but it's about scar tissue and muscle memory. Mm-hmm. And your body does not allow you to make, or prevents you as best as possible to make the same mistakes. Right. And so you try to do it again, and whether you're conscious of it or not, you're going to avoid the same pitfalls, right? And so anyway, that was a completely humbling experience. Those aunties and uncles that gave us the $1 million, at the Diwali party the next year, they were like, that kid filed for bankruptcy, and it was definitely very humbling.
But shouldn't it be like a badge of honor that if we just said, hey, you're going to learn so much more if you've gone through that experience and you come out of it, shouldn't that be like, you are so much investable now because you're not going to make those stupid mistakes again?
That's right. And once you face failure like that, you feel invincible, right? Because if you can get up from that and do it again, then you basically face the worst thing that can happen in business. Mm-hmm. One of the worst things that can happen in business, and the fact that you've overcome it makes you feel invincible, right? It's not how many times you fall down, but how many times you get up.
Right.
And that's it, and I was really fortunate that being my first business lesson, on the streets. I say I got my MBA on the street, in that way, in that fashion. We tell entrepreneurs now, fail fast. I mean, ideally not on our dime, right? Fail fast.
But they should be fail fast and fail often, and then they're learning and they're progressing, and there's not big F ups. Right. There's small F ups that they can learn from and keep moving on.
Yeah. That's right. Yep.
Yeah, dude, that's why we branded all of our stuff, actually. You'll love this.
Yeah.
Fail fast everywhere.
Love it. Yeah. It's amazing. As a venture capitalist now, we can't exactly walk around with stickers that say fail fast. But so I, although you can in
what are you kidding me? You VCs walk around with stickers that say spend fast.
Yeah. By the way, VC is still a term that gives me a little anxiety because as a founder for, over across 5 startups, like the term VC was never something that was embraced. And so I still don't consider myself or ourselves as VCs. We're founders first. And the capital piece of it is a very small percentage, right? We're in the trenches helping folks like a co-founder, but yeah, spend fast or fail fast before we invest. How about that?
Sure. So let's continue your story, man. So your first startup goes under.
Yeah, so it went under. One interesting thing, I was like, I was CS in college, but before that in high school and elementary school, I'd always be tinkering and coding and taught myself to code and all that great stuff. And actually one thing, all 5 startups, I was very proud to be like the first code to check in. And fortunately, I hired people much, much better than me.
Sure.
As the companies grew. But the piece of code that we wrote at Philly Tonight that was interesting was an SMS platform. This is back in 98, 99, way before SMS was cool. Actually, this is before interop. So in the States, at least, you couldn't even text Verizon and AT&T.
Right,
or interop.
You have to do it within your carrier. And
you could only do it within.
And texting was doing it on your keypad and pushing for A, B, C.
Exactly. And so what we did at at Philly Tonight, Ipsh is the next company I'll talk about in a second, is we actually ended up through brute force. We actually mapped out where we thought phone numbers, what carrier belonged to, owned what phone numbers. And by brute force, I mean, if you were just send an SMTP, like an email, to phone number at the carrier suffix, you would actually get a mailed returned because the interface was SMTP, and if it wasn't returned, it would go through. And so using that brute force, we actually created this really interesting map of
You
like,
got a database of actual numbers and where they would be.
we had a database, we had these scripts that were just running. These were millions of numbers that we would basically group and attribute to carriers. And actually what we then
You're like
used
the
that.
pioneer of the spam duck cleaning.
Actually, here's a little known. Well, I'll talk about this on the next company, but we were thinking about doing something really interesting that would have definitely gotten us on magazine covers, in an infamous way,
Right.
not in a famous way, but so anyway, at Philly Tonight, we ended up using this tech in an interesting way, where you would just put in your phone number, not even your carrier, and select what type of music you were interested in. So hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
We would basically figure out what city you're in by your area code. This is before number portability, by the way. So
Mm-hmm.
most likely you were in your area code. And then we would text you using our technology that night, that hip hop event in Philadelphia. And so we were doing we were doing SMS communication for events for nightlife in Philly Tonight. So when we took that company under, I actually bought back the asset, that particular piece of code, for like $1,000.
Right. Because you still saw value, and you were like, "Hey, there's still value here. If you could buy it on the cheap, then buy it and go and keep that IP."
Exactly. And so what we ended up doing then is I moved to San Francisco in 2001, and I spun that up into a new company, and it's called IPSH. We call it IPSH, which is Instant Power Single Handed. We then actually rolled that tech into this new company, and we decided to sell it B2B. So Philly Tonight, and actually the parent company of that was called Urban Groove, which was multiple Philly Tonights all over the world, went under, bought back the asset, and then created a company called IPSH. Now, itch was a sound that a record makes when you scratch it. Itch, itch, itch. So we bought the domain name. And then my buddy Vij, who's Vijay Chadha, who's like a ninja expert marketer, basically reverse engineered the acronym to Instant Power Single Handed, like a little bit later when the company was doing well.
Yeah.
But what we did is we just then took that technology, sold it to brands, and we started with folks like artists, because we're obviously in the music industry, who wanted to text their fans to maybe dial in to 106 in Park or TRL, which is how you get your videos played on MTV or 106 in Park. And that's how you used to move records back in the day before iTunes.
If you got on Carson Daly or 106 in Park, you were huge.
Exactly. And actually there's a cover I still have around, 2003. I can picture this very vividly. Hollywood Reporter. We were working with Nelly's label, and Nelly used our tech to register 100,000 of his fans. And we would send a text message seconds before 106 in Park voting started. And it'd be from Nelly, and it would say, hey, this is Nelly, click here to vote on my new video, Air Force Ones. And we crashed every single phone bank. And the calls that went through, they voted for 106 in Park. Guess what? The video went to number one, album went to number one, track went to number one, album went to number one. And
now it's stuck in my head.
Exactly. And so we knew we were onto something, right? And then we ended up working with bigger and bigger brands. And then ultimately that company was acquired by Omnicom, one of the large ad holding groups, in 2005. But, that was my first entrepreneurial journey. It was Philly Tonight to Urban Groove, going bankrupt, buying the assets, building Itch, and then selling Itch. One thing I'll never regret is, and I think this is important for founders to understand too, is, we did have angel investors in Urban Groove and Philly Tonight. We ended up giving them options in Itch because we didn't raise much new capital in Itch, and we felt like it was a continuation of the business, right?
Yeah.
Especially because we bought the assets. But listen, these guys bet on us very early, and so everybody did well, and ended up creating a lot of goodwill. And I think it's often entrepreneurs forget that this is a very long game. That most founders will have a bunch of goes. Could end up creating several companies in their lifetime. and
Mhm.
so they shouldn't be, myopic like that. So anyway, in
That's
retrospect,
really
really happy.
that's really cool because you didn't have to do that.
No,
You didn't have to do that at all. And the fact that you took care of the people who took their first shot on you, um, and just brought them in, and then had an amazing outcome. I mean, they bet on you every single time.
that's right. Yeah, we created a lot of goodwill, and I was welcomed back to the Diwali parties. So that was
Your aunties
always.
and uncles were like, "Come on back in."
I'm back in the good graces with the aunties and uncles,
Nice.
which was the most important thing.
They'll feed you the laddus all over again. It's perfect.
Exactly. Um, and then just kind of fast forwarding, one thing that founders are, we're unemployable, right? We work 100 hours to not work 40 hours.
Mhm.
And so I had to get out of Omnicom as soon as I could.
How long did you last?
I lasted about 2 years. I think I had
Yeah.
a 4-year contract. I was like, I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
It was great, great experience running mobile basically for this behemoth, right? Even today, 1 out of 3 ads that you see anywhere, television, print, online, mobile, are run through an Omnicom agency. So it's very, very large.
Yeah. Massive.
And it was a terrific experience, but I had the itch that needed to scratch again, and it was actually Philly Tonight 2.0. But this time on mobile, right? What we learned
Mhm.
through itch is that mobile marketing was just starting, and so we created a company called Buzz, to BUZZD, that was venture backed in New York City. And essentially, it was a real time city guide. So whereas Philly Tonight Urban Groove was more static, we thought the mobile device would be a great venue for input and output of real-time events. So if you were at a bar, club, restaurant, you could actually very quickly log what was happening now, pictures, text, video,
Mhm.
and anybody anywhere could consume that information. So if you wanted to know if this bar was packed or if this club was,
If you're having FOMO from the place you're at and say, "Hey, what's going on over there?" You don't got to walk over anymore. Just go jump into Buzz and see what's happening.
Exactly. And by the way, there's still no Buzz. Ideas for anybody who are listening.
Foursquare kind of tried it, right?
So we were in. So by the way, we then grew into this cohort of all these location-based services
Mhm.
between 2008 2010. So Foursquare was the dominant player of the cohort, but there was Looped, there was Gowalla, there was Whirl, right?
Wow.
There was Buzzed. Whirl was Acquihire, I think. Amazon. Looped was, I think, Blue Dot, maybe. Gowalla was Acquihire, Facebook. Foursquare obviously has pivoted since and merged, and now they're premier location-based provider of data.
Mhm.
And of course, Yelp, right? But if you think about it today, I mean, if you were to fire up, imagine, San Francisco, Toronto, New York on your phone and get a heat map of what's happening right now and actually be able to drill into, not only city blocks, but venues. The amazing thing is today, the real-time social media is, a million X, right? What it used to
Of
be
course.
in 2008, because you have geotagged Instagram, and you have geotagged tweets, and you have geotagged, Facebook posts, and
Everything. You got to just admit,
everything, and
whether you
TikTok
know it
and
or not,
Snap
it's
and
everything. Everything's geotagging. Yeah.
Dub Smashed, whatever, right? And
Yeah.
so a bunch of that is public, right?
Yep.
Majority, all of Twitter is, all of Insta is. So being able to now pull that information in, you actually don't need a platform to create your first party data. Just be an aggregator and and see what's happening. So I think there is, by the way, still is a use case and an interesting proposition for Buzz. Whether there's a business model or not, that's another question. What leads me to the story that Buzz failed because it was very hard to monetize. We actually bet big on BlackBerry in 2008. We were BlackBerry Fund's first investment. And actually, Matt Golden, who was at the fund, was part of that deal team. We work very closely with him now on the venture side. He runs co-founder of Golden Ventures in Toronto. And so because of that investment, we didn't have to, but we built pretty aggressively for BlackBerry. And, it definitely benefited us in the beginning. We were at top of the App Store. I have still screenshots where we're above Facebook even in 2008, 2009 in the BlackBerry App Store. A lot of the other LBS apps at that time, iPhone just came out, were building for Apple. And we didn't build quickly enough for Apple. I mean, I think another lesson learned is startups, most scarce resource is time.
Absolutely.
And if you focus on one platform, you better do it amazing on that platform. And for us, iPhone was kind of was a side thought, right? BlackBerry was core.
BlackBerry was what, 80-90% market share then?
It was. And so obviously we rose with BlackBerry and we fell with BlackBerry, right? But through the process, met some incredible people. We actually ended up using a little known company in 2009 to build our iPhone and Android apps. That company became Extreme Labs. I remember meeting Umar and Sunny in our office. And actually Umar, I know we want to talk about Ocean's 11, ended up coming to an Ocean's 11 with our iPhone product at that time. This was, I think, 2009 or 2010 maybe. And it basically was a shot glass on your iPhone, and you use the accelerometer to basically put it upside down or drink it, whatever. And then when it goes right side up, we would actually just surface to you one cool thing to do near you. So it was fun, it was curated, and that was our iPhone strategy. In any event, that business failed. We burned through, I think, 4 million in venture. 2010 came around. We were not the leading location-based service provider. Foursquare was. We were forced to pivot.
Both of you too, being New York companies, right? In a time where it was just thought great startups only come out of the Valley, which is something else I admired about you guys. You, Dennis at Foursquare, and everybody else, you guys were the first ones to band together, not be enemies, but actually start to build an ecosystem around New York City.
Yeah, I think the thesis then was, listen, there's no other city like New York in terms of density and in terms of just the social energy. And so it kind of felt natural for a city guide, a social, location-based service to be in New York, right? Anyway, I know Dennis thinks very, very strongly about that, as well. We were forced to pivot in 2010. And so actually taking a page from my Philly 10 Urban Group to Ipsh days, going B2C to B2B, kind of understanding, observing a behavior for B2C, and then leveraging that for marketers in B2B, seemed like it could work. And the first go around, we understood that folks really like getting text messages, 20 years ago, and that marketers could send text messages to folks on an opt-in basis. The second go around were that people also were creating all this real-time public social media. And obviously Twitter was just starting to grow at that time. Jack actually ended up, I met him at an Ocean's 11 in Barcelona in 2009. Could we leverage that social data to actually make ads more targeted, right? And so that became the inspiration for the pivot from Buzz to a company called Local Response that was launched in 2010. We ended up raising another 10 million. That company got up to about 10 million revenues annually. And it was later acquired after a merger. Ad tech, the whole category got commoditized very quickly soon after that. But that was, my second basically cycle, right? Startup number 3, I guess, Ipsh, Buzz. Turned into Local Response, and then merged and then was acquired. So it's an interesting time. A lot of more scar tissue developed. one thing I gained from both those experiences was really selling into the Fortune 5000, because all of the B2B companies, those would be the best customers of those products.
Mm-hmm.
And so the interesting thing about that whole category is folks that you meet at a very high level end up staying at that level at different companies. And so your network essentially keeps growing. And that's one thing that I'm very grateful to have developed as a founder and now utilize pretty much every day as an investor. Because those folks, actually, some of them are even on this Instagram Live.
Yeah, they're jumping on. I'm looking and they're jumping in and out.
A lot of them were my clients and customers. They become my friends, and they're still doing amazing things at different companies. So, but those are my startup chops. Philly Tonight, Urban Groove, Ipsh, and then Buzz Local Response. Eventually that, like I mentioned, was both of those were acquired. So, fun times. Being a founder, as you know, is definitely not easy. But there's a reason we do it. It's like the highs are so high, the lows are very low. The highs and the lows happen many times every day.
And sometimes, and the funny thing is, and I've talked to you a lot about this, is sometimes where everybody thinks you're on this and you should be on this high, that might actually be your low. And then for me, it's been the vice versa. When times have been really effed up at TribalScale, is the times where I'm on my high, because I'm like, hey, I know what I'm solving right now. You never know. You never know. Before we switch gears, I've been doing this little part where I start rapid firing questions at you, and so I'm gonna rapid fire some questions at you, and just no long-winded answers, just quickly. Let's get people to know you better.
Okay.
I've been doing this one a lot, and it's interesting to hear what responses come back. What are you binge watching right
now? Probably my son's Power Rangers, because we're all working from home. I've got two young kids. My oldest is 5 years old, and so his iPad. There's no more screen time limitations. So that's probably what I'm watching the most. I'm trying to get through Ozark, but I just haven't been able to sit down and just have peaceful Netflix binge. I can't wait to get into Ozark.
Oh, dude, Ozark is great. Do you know what helped me do it, though? I watched it on airplanes, and if you're watching it, I would be watching it on my phone. Yeah. And just Ozark goes so slow sometimes. I don't need to see the car pull up, you get out of the car, walk into the door just to know the guy's there waiting to shoot you or whatever. You hit the 10 seconds, let's go, let's get on with it.
Yeah, I wouldn't think it's good, plane watching material, right? You probably need something a little bit more fast-paced.
So you just keep skipping through it. But you got a newborn at home, so congrats.
Yeah, Sai is going to be 4 months Saturday. So yeah, he's keeping it interesting as well. But we're so blessed and grateful to spend so much time with these little guys at this age.
Absolutely. If you were going to jump on a plane and go somewhere, where would you go?
I would go to Hawaii.
Cool. Yes. I had Raj Singh on yesterday on the podcast. He said the same answer. He was like Hawaii.
Yeah, it just feels like it's a good place to be right now. It's an island, and there's water and beaches.
I come and visit you post-corona in New York. Let's promote a small business. Where are you going to go take me to eat?
I would take you to Momofuku Nishi, but David Chan closed it 2 weeks ago.
They closed all the Momofukus here in Toronto as well. It's sad.
It's really sad. It's really sad what's happened to restaurants. Part of our thing we built a couple months ago called Help Main Street, just trying to help some of these folks. But I think half of these restaurants are not going to exist. Post. So I don't know, man. I don't know where
let's give a plug. Let's give a plug to one of your favorites, and hopefully people are going to support them and get takeout and do whatever they can so they're still around.
I mean, like I said, Nishi, I hope the Sushi Seki right next door to us in Chelsea is still open. I'm dying for good sushi, that's for sure. Otherwise, in San Francisco, Akiko was our spot.
Cool.
That's still alive and well. They converted to takeout.
Cool. You know what? Let's forget the rapid fire stuff. Let's take some time. Talk about Help Main Street, man. We're on the
You
topic.
like rapid fire didn't work because you didn't give one word answers.
No, I didn't even need it. It doesn't even have to be one word answers. I think you just like started bringing me to more reality of the times of today and
Yeah.
these unfortunate restaurants that are
Yeah.
struggling right now. So let's talk about your initiative with Help Main Street, and we'll get back to some of the other stuff we're going to be talking about, like your fund. But Help Main Street, you saw this pandemic hit, and Nihal goes into action, going, "I got to do something." And how'd you do it? What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, this is almost 3 months ago now. We just saw a tweet actually that Mark Cuban had put up about the best kind of way to help a restaurant right now is to buy a gift card. It's a no interest loan. And I
Yeah.
started looking around, and there wasn't one destination to aggregate all the gift cards. A few weeks later, Square launched their own directory, but those are just Square powered gift cards.
Mm-hmm.
And gift cards are very fragmented. We didn't know anything about the
And
market.
most mom and pop restaurants wouldn't even know how to get onto a platform to give you a gift card.
Exactly. And so the first thing we did is we just created like a kayak of gift cards, like an aggregator of gift cards. And it's still very much in the mission. We don't take any transaction or house any transaction. We just forward it to a trusted source that the merchant already has a relationship with. So, a bunch of merchants have Square gift cards or, other types of gift cards. And we would create a directory. We create a directory and we would just send traffic to the various pages. But it was very surprising to know that there wasn't one destination for all the gift cards. And so we started there. That took off. Sure enough, that was a niche that wasn't filled. And then we started expanding. And the interesting thing about this project is we're getting so much pull from the market, from other incredible restaurateurs and other people in the industry that are saying, here's another hole, here's another hole, here's another hole. And we've just been able to grow and expand our roadmap. So we started
Awesome. So you started perfectly. That's a good lean product story, right? Like just go out there, do one thing, and your users
Exactly.
are going to tell you what else you need.
Exactly. And it was, a very low impact, high value. It's like incredible ROI, right? Like we pulled 2 all-nighters. I found actually a buddy put a bunch of us on Slack, and we created a team of volunteers. We have 12 amazing, incredible volunteers, a bunch of engineers from a startup called Lunchbox. And these guys just rocking and rolling, because I think also during this time of anxiety and stress, I think people need purpose, and of course we're trying to manage our families and our work. But I think when you're able to channel a lot of your anxiety into altruism and to helping others, it's just a win-win. It gives you a sense of purpose, and you're actually helping move the needle and helping somebody out there, right? And so it's been incredible to watch so many tech entrepreneurs as well, just spinning up very simple projects that a lot of our friends have been doing that are making big dents, that are really helping. So, we started with gift cards. Then we noticed that a lot of restaurants had GoFundMe pages and donate links. So we started aggregating all of those.
Cool.
And then we realized this was our most recent release a couple of weeks ago, that a lot of the third-party ordering platforms like Grubhub, and you probably are seeing a lot of this negative PR, are taking a big chunk, sometimes up to 30.
We saw Uber Eats is like at 30%, and then you got Foodora and some of the others at
30%
20%.
take.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's the cost of the food, for the restaurant. So like a lot of these small merchants are being destroyed by the commissions. Lo and behold, there are first party ordering platforms, that don't take a commission, that take a fixed fee. And, these are whatever, 20, 50, $100 a month. But the point is, you're not taking 30% of your gross receipts. And so these are first party ordering links. Most restaurants are promoting these on their websites. They have to use Grubhub because they use it for distribution, but they would like people to use the first party because they get to keep 30% more. And so we're like, all right, let's aggregate all the first party order links. So now you can go to Help Main Street. We're actually live in 15.
It's helpmainstreet.com?
Helpmainstreet.com. We're actually live in 15 countries. The bulk is obviously in the US. Over 120,000 local businesses. The majority are restaurants. You can order online directly from the restaurant. So they will not give up a 30% cut if you find the link at our site. We actually verify and authenticate every single link and every single vendor on our site to make sure they're not price gouging or have any bad behavior for the restaurants. So we're thrilled at where it's pulled us. And again, it was so easy to create. It was literally 2 all-nighters. Felt like I haven't done that since.
And that's awesome. I mean, just to think about it, you don't got to boil the ocean. You can start simple. You can get massive scale right away. You obviously hit a huge pain point for this industry, and you have it up and running, and you keep iterating on that product. That's an entrepreneurial story just in itself. How quickly you can get such a massive scale going on that platform.
Yeah, I mean, the best products are just so simple, and they start so easy. I mean, look at Twitter, and then they just have this vicious product market pull that then propels the company, right? But it's about keeping it simple. And anyway, it's so much fun. We have like the most active Slack group at Help Main Street every day. The volunteers, I think we have over 100 people in the channel now. Tons of great ideas, tons of partnerships that we're about to announce. And, we've driven hundreds of thousands of dollars for local restaurants in need. So we're really proud of that.
I like it on so many different levels. I mean, we're very fortunate in tech that we've been able to still work, not to say that there hasn't been many layoffs and stuff like that, but we've been able to work remotely and still do our day-to-day. But B, you got to go take care of your neighbors, and they're so unfortunate they can't even go out there to earn a living. And if they do go out there and earn a living, they're risking their lives. So awesome initiative. Okay, let's swing back. You've done your entrepreneurial journey, and you say you want to be a founder first and put money into companies, which you kind of were already doing throughout your time as a founder, but you formalized it. So talk about putting together the fund and how that came about. I mean, I love you. When you told me you were putting the fund together, we were in Barcelona at Mobile World Congress, just eating some tapas, and you were talking about, oh yeah, I've already closed it. And you most people run around trying to put a fund together for a year or two. You were able to do it in months. So talk a little bit about why that happened for Nihal. What was so special about Nihal to make that happen? And 2, your motivation behind what kind of entrepreneurs you're looking to fund.
Yeah. I'll tell you a couple quick stories. One is my very first investment. After I sold Omnicom in 2005, there was a gentleman that was dropping out of Wharton MBA, and he wanted to create a mobile ad network. And he saw, I went to Penn, and he saw that I had just sold my company to Omnicom, and he thought that I could, potentially offer some advice. And I did. He asked me to invest in his startup. He asked kind of 4 or 5 angels, and I had never done any investing up until this point. And I said, okay, like I really don't know what to expect, but here you go. A few months later, Sequoia announced the seed round, and then they announced in Series A with Excel. 4 years later, that company was acquired by Google for $800 million, and that was AdMob. And actually got to know a few folks through that journey that are still incredible friends and mentor. Actually, Rich Wong from Excel has been one of our inspirations and mentors. And Jason Spiro at AdMob is a dear friend. Even to this day, he's still at Google. And of course, Omar Hamoui, the founder of AdMob, we're still very close to. But anyway, I got to see that journey of like what real VC can do. And what happened to that story? I mean, when Sequoia and Excel came on, all of a sudden, the head of sales and the head of product and the head of tech were in a blink of an eye, they were world class. Tony Nethercutt, who's running ad sales at YouTube, was all of a sudden sales. Kevin Scott ran tech. By the way, Kevin Scott is now the CTO of Microsoft.
What an awesome team, and seeing them grow and come through this journey, amazing.
Yeah, it was incredible, and just watching that was inspirational, and that was very that created a great impression in my mind of like what could be possible with the right team around the table, right. Both on the cap table and in the office, right?
Sure.
And so anyway, I continued to do some angel investing, and I got this email. We're still looking for this email in probably 2009 from a few friends of mine from college, Vic and Hadley and Tim. And they were thinking about putting together a fund. Hadley had been operating mobile companies. Tim was a founder. Vic actually was at a few venture shops, Chart Ventures and RRE, and they actually pinged me to see if I could help them raise money, or they actually asked me to invest. And so I responded and I said, I'm in. And they went back and they're like, what does he mean he's in? Does that mean he's going to invest? And so they asked me to clarify. I said, no, I want to be a partner.
But that's the thing. You said the same thing to me. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do next. And you were like, I'm in.
Exactly. Those are the two best words.
That's just what you do. You pump us entrepreneurs up with 2 words, and I'm in. I was like, shit, I actually got to go figure out a business plan now. This guy's in.
I mean, there's, listen, there's when you have, right?
Yeah.
And actually, even now, writing checks, like this happens time and time again. You meet an entrepreneur, and it's on, and you know that in 60 seconds of meeting somebody. Oftentimes, obviously, you have to do your work and all that to validate your hunch. But in any case, I said I'm in, and the rest is history. So the 4 of us started ENIAC. 1 actually was a decade ago. So we launched that in 2010, and it was a small fund. It was really a.
How much was it? You guys started from very small, from what I read.
Yeah, it was 1.5 million.
Yeah, it was like very small. Yeah.
So it was tiny. It was our money, our friends' money, but we wanted to prove to ourselves that we could build a track record. At that time, actually, all of us were still building our own startups. So we were nights and weekends on ENIAC. We actually didn't charge management fees because, we were working on our own startups. So we didn't feel like we could justify that. We made 32 investments, and that fund is doing great.
Now name drop, you name dropper.
We've had some, there's some big outcomes. I mean, Airbnb's in that fund by virtue of an acquisition, but Vungle, we were seed in, that was acquired for $780 million last year. Localytics was acquired earlier this year. There's a few other incredible companies still in that fund. But obviously, one learning is that these things take time. I mean, Vungle took 9 years or 7 years.
9 years, a decade, yeah.
And, the best companies take a decade to germinate, right? Anyway, we were having a lot of fun, building startups, especially pre-product market fit is what we like to be as an operator and a founder. And so if we could do that over and over again with other companies as an investor at that stage, then we thought, if we could do that all day long for the rest of our lives, then we would be very happy because that's aligned with our passion. And so off we went. Fund 2 was bigger, 12.9 million. We ended up inviting some family offices in high net worth. Fund 3 was our first institutional fund. So we ended up attracting some university endowments to the fund, and we became, as LPs call us, kind of the institutional class kind of GPs. That was a $55 million fund. Fund 4 that we're finishing up now is a $100 million fund. And we've been continuing to grow that institutional LP base. So now we manage capital for a number of universities, pension funds, fund of funds, foundations,
Mhm.
um, and
Wow.
and it's been an incredible ride. And one thing that we've stayed true to since the beginning is the stage of company that we enter at. It's pre-product market fit. Obviously, the check size has changed a lot. In Fund One, it was we always talk about this. We debate for the same amount of time for a 25K check in Fund One that we're doing for a $1 million check now. In
Right.
Fund
Right.
Four. So check size has
What what is
increased.
what is it?
Ownership has
What
increased.
is it? What has the check size gone to now for Fund Four?
Yeah, we like to lead seed rounds. Seed rounds are $3 to $4 million. We like to be kind of no more than half of that round. So we're building a syndicate with the founder. So usually we're 1 to 1.5 million or $1 to $2 million check size. We take that responsibility very seriously. So we're usually getting a board seat and we're investor of record. What that means is, we are responsible for helping the company get to the next phase,
Yep.
to get to the Series A. And so at the Series A, there's a Bessemer, Sequoia, Lightspeed, Excel, whoever it is, that we essentially hand the baton off to.
Sure.
And we're usually coming off the board, if not at the A, at the B. We're, of course, doing our pro rata through the B. So there's a commitment to the founder that we are, back in for the
So
next
that's
couple
huge
rounds.
then, that you're just not there just for the first year and a half, 2 years until as a founder I get to my A. No, Nihal, you've saved tranches for further investment so that you're part of the journey with the founder. As you
That's
said,
right.
you're just not the money. You're just not dumb money in, right? Like you're doing this as a group of founders to help founders.
That's right. I mean, we feel like, and our founders tell us, we're like co-founders with them without the title and the equity, but the
Mm-hmm.
same kind of pain quotient of being in the trenches
Mm-hmm.
and doing whatever it takes to get the A done. So that's a lot of customer discovery, a lot of sales, a lot of biz dev, a lot of recruiting, obviously helping even sometimes manage the fundraising process for the Series A.
Right.
But we've been doing this now for 10 years, and we said when we were creating ENIAC, this is our last job, and we want to be doing this for the rest of our lives. And so we feel fortunate every day. I mean, to be doing what you love with whom you love is a real treat. And when you can find a job that doesn't feel like a job, you want to do it all the time.
Yeah, you just want to get up and that's what you want to do. So you wouldn't be
And that's what you want to do. You want to help
even if you were
unlock.
on that beach in Hawaii you were talking about. I've been with you when you pop the AirPods in or headphones in. You're like, I got a call and I want to do the call. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter what 11 at
I mean, the
night.
nice thing, the interesting thing is post COVID, right? I mean, I think obviously you're reading it in the headlines. Shopify today, right? Work from home forever, trying to match, Twitter and Square. I think the future of work is very much that. The office almost feels like an artifact.
Yeah.
In
I
the
miss it
sense,
though, man. I miss the office.
yeah,
The hustle, bustle, the buzz. I feed off the energy of everyone else there. But I totally get that there's going to be a time and place for it, and
yeah. Well, I think
traditional
you and
commercial real estate models have to be flipped upside their head. There's a bunch of startup opportunities right there.
for sure. I think you and I are alike in a lot of ways, unfortunately, but we, we're both extroverts, and so extroverts, really rely on and are powered by other people's energies. And in a time like this, you can get obviously energy to a certain extent from Zoom and video, but there's nothing like the physical energy that can help manifest your own energy. And so I think that's the challenge when you're not in the office with everybody, especially when you're the leader of an incredible company like you at TribalScale. I mean, it's hard.
It's tough. Yeah, it's tough. Let's talk. Let's talk about one of the things. I think it's Bessemer who does this on their website. You can actually see their anti-portfolio, the stuff that's passed up on. What are some of the ones you passed up on that you're like, oh, I got it wrong. I totally missed it on that first 60-second assessment I did.
Yeah, we think about these every day. I mean, I still have the email that I teased my partner Hadley about when we passed on Pinterest in 2010.
Yeah.
because it wasn't mobile. I think when we started ENIAC, because we were building our companies in the mobile software space, we had that very focused lens of mobile software investment.
Sure.
And by the way, I think any new fund today,
Should
it's
do
hard
that.
to start.
Yeah, they should do that.
It's hard to start as a generalist. You need a focus, I think, and then eventually you can open your aperture. But yeah, we were mobile focused for the first two funds, and so that's why we passed on Pinterest. That was not a good decision.
Funny, I didn't even know Pinterest was not mobile first.
Yeah,
I'm not much of a user of it, but yeah,
totally. And then the other one was, I mentioned we met Jack at Ocean's 11 in 2009 when he was starting this company called Squirrel. We got a demo of it, and actually, my wife Reshma was running for U.S. Congress actually in 2010, and we started using it, trying to use it, and Squirrel eventually became Square, and we were using V1 of the dongle, and it's definitely wasn't smooth, right? This is like 20,
but it's also
2011.
2010.
Yeah,
2010, 2011. It's like you got Android 2.2 phones out there.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so I actually have emails where I was introducing Jack to other VCs because I didn't think it would be a good investment. And by the way, a lot of those VCs, I still remind them that they also passed on Square. But that was the first round of Square, and that was a huge mistake. So anyway, you can't win them all. But you definitely learn from those mistakes. I think one thing I've learned, and we're still learning a lot, is that your network is incredibly important, and trust in that network is very important as well. And I think if you developed a good relationship with somebody that you've known over a period of years, that you're always betting on the jockey and not the horse. And if the thing doesn't work, like the jockey's going to figure it out. If you have that level of relationship, trust, confidence with that founder. And the other thing is, these businesses twist and turn and pivot a million times. You never end up with the business plan that you started with. And so, those are things that have stuck with us, and hopefully we're making better decisions now.
For sure. One of the things I learned from you, and I didn't even realize I was doing it, but I kind of formalized myself in doing it, is learning that my network is my net worth. And that's something that, you've done a great job of building this amazing network. And you and I was loving going to your Ocean's 11 dinner. And then all of a sudden one year you can't come and you ask me to host. And I always still tell the story as if Nihal is there. And sometimes now with technology, I bring you in live while I tell the story. But tell the story of how you started this amazing Ocean's 11 dinner in Barcelona and what that's grown into.
Yeah, I mean, this was 11 mobile founders in 2001 that we decided to just get together and have dinner. At that time it was CTIA, and then it turned into MWC in Barcelona. But those were essentially the wireless trade conferences, in the heyday. Back when people were going to conferences like psychopaths, right?
Those germ infestation places.
Exactly. Back when people were shaking hands and getting badges and going to booths and going to dinners and doing deals over drinks. And
not sleeping and running in a half-made suit with your tie falling off.
Like psychopaths. Like psychopaths. And this community just kept growing. And so pretty much at every one of these conferences we'd have a dinner, and we'd have it fully sponsored, and folks would be able to invite people that they thought, obviously it was invite only, but people that they thought would be additive to the group. And like I mentioned, we've had Jack, we had Eric Schmidt, we've had incredible founders.
It's the one thing that everybody wants to come to. At Mobile World Congress, everybody circles it and says, "Hey, we're going to be there."
Yeah, people have said they just come in for that dinner. I can't wait to thanks for holding the torch, by the way, the past couple of years. I can't wait to go back. And by the way, a good reason to hold the torch, I think, was because one year, my son was born this year.
Well, this year we couldn't even do it. We canceled.
Oh, yeah.
COVID canceled Mobile World Congress, right? We couldn't even do it.
That's right. But thanks for holding the torch, man. I'll be back there with you. But I think that community, just building a group of folks and having a tradition around that, whether it's your family or your friends, or professional contacts, is really like the power of that is really underestimated. That tradition that people look forward to and people tell jokes around and people have those vivid memories about, right? I think is really important. And anyway, that's something that we built, for example, at Ocean's 11, and we're also doing that, at ENIAC, every day. But yeah, those were good times.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's tough to see how you're going to be able to network and create personal connections now, without being able to do that. I mean, a lot of the network that I've built has been over dinners. It's been at conferences, and it's going to be tough now to try to figure out different ways of communicating. I think this podcast is a good way for us to put ourselves out there and engage with others who are going to be listening and commenting and so on and so forth. But
Sure.
We're going to have to find different ways of doing it, at least for the short term. And that sucks. I don't know many other ways to do it, but I'm sure there's another startup idea in just being able to do that effectively.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Before we end off, I know we're going over time here, but Nihal, what's your advice to other founders, man? People want to come pitch you. What do you look for in an entrepreneur when they come to you and they come start pitching you? You say you make a decision within 60 seconds. What are you looking for?
I mean, I think, and by the way, just to clarify, the decision isn't made necessarily in 60 seconds.
I keep saying that because I can't wait for founders to ask you after 60 seconds. In
in any human interaction, you kind of have that first impression instinct, right?
Yeah.
And that happens almost instantaneously, and then you have to, bring together a ton of data and do a lot of work to validate that, or not. And anyway, these days we love, serial founders, folks that have done it before. Like I mentioned, they failed fast before. So the next time around, cycles are compressed. They're the muscle memory and scar tissue to do it much better the second time around. Ideally, it's a team that's done it before together, because one thing we've noticed is one of the number one reasons these early stage startups die is just co-founder infighting. We've experienced it ourselves and through our investments.
Absolutely.
And so if you can,
and that's something I don't think it's not talked about enough. Where co-founders just rush into with each other, being like, "Oh, it's all going to work out." But people, I think it's a whole other show where I think we should just talk about like what happens when chemistry goes bad.
Totally, and that's a big startup killer. And so for us to de-risk that, we like to see founders that have done it before together. And by the way, they had tough times together. So if you had your hands around somebody else's neck, like trying to choke them out in a previous experience, and you're still working with them today, that means something, and so that, those are ways that we like to kind of de-risk, the founding team, and the chemistry around that, because that is, definitely a top reason startups, early stage startups, die. And then, now I think we have our own interests in terms of what we like, in the world. We're all engineers, so we're probably a little bit more technical than others, but there's usually some aspect of machine learning, in and around the company. I think, for the past couple of years, a lot of the companies we've invested in have been SaaS and have been responsible for digital transformation of usually old state industries like construction or real estate, insurance, healthcare.
Of course.
Really helping them accelerate, digitally, which, by the way, post-COVID is is accelerating even faster, right? Andrew Yang says 10 years of digital transformation in the past 10 weeks, and
Absolutely.
that's the case. I'm sure you're seeing that.
We're seeing that. We're seeing that.
today.
I mean, and we're just seeing a massive influx of need. Unfortunately, we're also seeing CEOs listening to their CFOs, figuring out how they're going to get through this tough time without spending anything. But the first place they're going to start spending is digital. And so we're definitely seeing a huge pent up demand and the willingness to say, we got to not only digitize our processes and the way we work, but we have to become really digitally relevant to our consumers.
Yep.
Whether you're a B2B company or a B2C company, all companies do.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And you were seeing that in the public markets in terms of like even NASDAQ versus Dow, or Shopify versus
as we're doing this today, the FANG exchange is at its highest it's ever been.
Yeah. It's and that's going to continue. I mean, maybe there's some inflation there. There'll be another adjustment. Who knows? But like the digital transformation thing is, internet's been out for decades, but like now companies are forced to adapt. Otherwise, they're dead. And taking this back to restaurants with Help Main Street, like you're seeing this, right? Like the restaurants that don't have a digital presence, like whether it's a digital gift card or even ordering online or takeout or Grubhub, they have no way to facilitate commerce. It's not even like, oh, this will supplement your revenue by 20%. It's like, no, if you don't do
zero
this,
revenue now. Yeah.
If you don't do this, you will have zero revenue.
Yeah.
It is like the biggest forcing function. Right. And that's like an extreme case, but like there's many industries that are in that same similar boat. So anyway, that's
and we're seeing some cool stuff. We're doing some work with a big restaurant conglomerate company, and they're looking at, hey, how could you order ahead, actually be there when it's ready for you to pick up and not have to wait around? How could they even come and do curbside drop off? So come outside and give it to you in your car. Don't even get out of your car. They're obviously contactless delivery where they can drop it at your front door. They're looking at doing all these sorts of things because they're willing to bet that, hey, this is going to take longer, and they want to stay around, and this is going to become now 100% of their channel because dining rooms aren't opening for a while.
And I think what's happening is that a lot of us, even say we're back to normal, vaccine tomorrow, obviously that's never going to happen that quickly, but a lot of people realize there's so much dramatic convenience in what they've experienced that they can actually have a day of Zoom meetings and not have to go to the office, that they can just order from the grocery store and e-commerce without having to walk into the storefront, right? It's that convenient, and there's no loss in quality, right, of the experience and of the final transaction. So I think that convenience is going to stick, and a lot of people, I mean, this is a big inflection point and big transformational moment in our generation. And we say that some kids are like boomer babies. I mean, we have the Zoomer babies, you know what I mean?
Right.
And those are my kids. Like certainly Sean, who's 5 years old, I mean, his school is on Zoom. He was just doing art class upstairs on Zoom, and this is what he knows, and he's a ninja at Zoom, by the way. He can go gallery view, mute, leave the meeting, turn the video off. I had to get rid of Snap Camera because he was really scaring his friends. But it's a whole, we have the internet, and they have they have digital everything. We had the internet, we toyed with the internet, but they are nothing but the internet. So it's a really interesting experience.
And it's funny, like we grew up with typewriters and then some computers and then internet. And then there's a generation after us that grew up with like a keyboard in their hands. Then I think there's a generation after that with mobile in their hands. And then there's a generation that's just connected all the time and doesn't have to physically see each other anymore.
Totally. It's crazy. Crazy times. But we're fortunate that everybody is safe and healthy, and happy that you guys are good and your teams are good, and we're gonna get through it. Just stay sane, and I've been trying to go for a little quick run every day, and get on a house party with friends, every so often.
Or a birthday Zoom with 100 people.
Or birthday.
Up.
Thanks for joining. That was awesome.
Nihal for his birthday a couple of weeks ago made us all go get plastic cups where I didn't even know where. Luckily I found one. But then we all played Flip Cup on Zoom. But there was 100 people. Only Nihal pulls 100 people for a Zoom birthday. Which was awesome. It was a ton of fun.
Next time I'll send cups. Well, next time hopefully it'll be in person. But it was chaotic, but it somehow worked out. Cool. But yeah, obviously prayers up to everybody that's affected, and if there's anything that that we can do, obviously Help Main Street is helping local businesses, largely restaurants. But if there's any other tech projects that people think need building, we're here to listen.
So how do people get a hold of you? How do the future entrepreneurs, the failed entrepreneurs who are ready to do it right this time, the co-founders who've been at each other's throats and are still working together, get a hold of you?
Email is the best, Nihal at ENIAC.bc. I'll respond to almost every email. I like email because it's asynchronous. When put the kids to bed, I can just crank them out. And one thing I learned as a founder, my best experiences with investors were not necessarily the ones that invested, but they were the ones that made that one intro that was really influential and really impactful to me. And I'll still remember the 3 or 4 completely money intros that I received. None of those investors invested in my company, but they just connected the dots. And they made this intro to somebody that was dramatically impactful to my business. It changed the trajectory of my business a few times. And so that's what we try to do.
So what are you interested in now also? You got, obviously mobile first was where you started 10 years ago. You talked about AI and machine learning. What else are you looking at right now that's really interesting?
Yeah, listen, it's funny, like the more unsexy the business, the more attractive it is to us. Right now I'm looking at a really interesting business that helps health insurance companies recover lost claims. So it's a multi-$100 billion market where insurance companies are billed for the wrong things. They're not billed, or they're billed incorrectly, or they're overbilled. And you can actually use machine learning and AI that was usually a desk job and that missed a ton of stuff. You can use ML to basically automate that process, right? So that's something that, like,
catch the fraudulent stuff, you can catch the missing stuff, you can catch the human error stuff. The ML is actually saying, hey, here's something human you should probably take a deeper look at. Exactly.
I think anything that's, machines are really good at anything that can automate human commoditized actions. And so that could be we have an autonomous forklift company. We have an autonomous robot, a robot arm that's reprogrammable by humans on the manufacturing line. We have obviously autonomous driving companies, autonomous naval ships. And then we have, software that automates human commoditized action. So instead of outsourcing, to India and China, the BPO industry is now being onsourced and it's being automated. And that's the entire robotic process automation category. We have a great company in that space called Fortress IQ. So, that's the stuff that really gets us excited. But at the end of the day, it's all about the team. It's all about the founders. And if we can find an amazing founder who has had some failures in the past or some small successes in the past, and they're doing it again. And if it's an industry we've never heard of or never even had interest in, we will learn about it. We will get up to speed very quickly if the founder is that compelling. And at our stage, it's really 90% about the founder.
Awesome. Nihal, thanks very much for joining me, man. I'm going to let you get back to Rishma and the 2 beautiful kids. Tell them I say hi.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to First Name Basis. This podcast is available on Apple, Spotify, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, all social. It's there. We'll be tweeting it out also. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Take care. Hope to see you in person soon, man.